On today's show, it was a surreal feeling watching Luka Doncic play against the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavs almost came away with a win, but what was it about the game itself and everything surrounding it that made it so weird? Talk about that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm gonna get a city like that.
Dogs, all of us, all five.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Wesley.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Still can't leave me alone.
Your team every day.
Gotta be born with it. Dogged up.
Dogged up. And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks, your team every day. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member covering the Dallas Mavericks for 10 years. Thanks for being an everydayer, making Locked On Mavs your first listen. Joining me, as always, my co-host, media member, the Luca return reject, the One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
Did you see that Omax block on Luca? He didn't want any. Luca didn't want none. I'm just kidding. Just kidding, guys. That was weird, man.
What a weird today's episode. This episode, we will get into everything about Luka playing against the Dallas Mavericks and about the Mavs, about Nico Harrison being there. We'll talk about the Jordan conspiracy that I have with the shoes and the car and the commercial. We'll talk about all the other stuff around it. If you want to hear about the basketball of the game, Isaac and I did an episode with Slightly. We did the 3-man weave on a show. We literally just focused on the basketball. We literally just focused on the game. So go listen to that one. It'll post right after this one, or if you're listening to this, wherever it is, it's probably in the same feed. So go check that out. But let's start here, Isaac. It was such a surreal feeling. It was just something I did not expect. It was a new feeling for me. It was something that I had not, a familiar feeling I hadn't seen in a long time. And I just, as I was watching it happen, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Kyrie looks so much younger with his haircut.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking. I just kept on going back to the beard shave, and I was like, dude, you look like young Cleveland days.
It's different.
And that was the weirdest part of this game. Seeing Max Christie too in a Mavs jersey.
I wish.
No, I mean, that's the definition of it. It's just weird. Any Mavs fan that's been a Mavs fan for a while, and us, we've talked about it multiple times. Like we were watching the stuff pre-draft of Luca at Real Madrid, and we're there in the arena when Luca did his first introductory press conference, in the summer of 2018, and saw this like super skinny, young kid walk in. His mom was there at the time, Jalen Brunson, new draftee, and Carlisle and Donnie Nelson, and everybody, people, players were sitting in the back and just watch every moment of his basketball life since then, even on national team Slovenia and everything.
Yeah.
It's just weird. It's just weird. It's still weird. It's not going to sink in for a while. Seeing Luka in a Lakers jersey going against your team. Just thinking about before the game of like, oh man, like the game plan against guarding Luka, like which one are they going to pick? I mentioned this on the other show, but it's like, which one are they going to do? Are they going to do the let Luka, score his 40 points and stay home on the shooters? Or are they going to try to take Luka out and dare the shooters to make shots? Something that we've talked about for literally years about what teams, playoff series, matchups and schemes. And now we're on the other side of it. And luckily we didn't get a 50-point Luka game. That would have been tough.
We didn't, but you mentioned how it's hard for it to set in. I think this helped it start to set in a little bit more, and it made it worse to actually see it and to see how the Mavs had to send multiple defenses at Luka. It made it worse that AD wasn't playing. All the stuff we talked about on the show yesterday, like one of the worst parts about the trade right now is that you saw it. You saw how Luka can pick apart a defense. He didn't shoot the ball particularly well, 6 of 17 from the field. The Mavericks got close to him. We'll talk about the game in the next episode, but the way that he just picks apart a team, the way that you feel, oh, this is a Luka revenge game. He had a moment where he was jawing at the Mavs, like he hit a 3 and he looked at the Mavs bench and gave him a little bit, and then man, you just feel everything that a team feels when you're playing against Luka Doncic in that, and that part felt super surreal in all of this. Is that wow, they really did that. They really traded. There's people tweeting before the game like, Dirk made 6 All-NBA teams. Luka has made 5 now. When's the next time the Mavericks will get an All-NBA player on the team? Man, I mean next
year with Kyrie, but
Kyrie could this year.
The
next
first
year,
team All-NBA.
Yeah, next year AD could. It's just, but you just realize like what you don't have on the team anymore. And yeah, I just thought that everything was surreal. You even go to the beginning of the game, like pregame. One of the weirdest moments of the whole night, I think, is Mavs related. Luka's warming up, and Nico Harrison is leaning against the scorer's table, talking to Malika Andrews, and just like watching Luka warm up in a blue suit, which is weird because Luka wore a blue suit with a white shirt under it a lot.
I don't. That
You didn't buy any. You didn't buy any of that.
I don't buy any of that.
Okay,
no.
okay, you didn't buy any.
I saw people trying to do the suit stuff. I'm like, all right, we've went totally too far.
I'll take it there. I'll take it there right now.
Nico does stand out there pregame a lot of games.
He does.
You would fit. I mean, my wife looked over and she's like, I'm surprised he's out there, like actually on the scores table and stuff. I'm like, is there arena that he's beloved more in right now? Like, why not?
But it was just so surreal to see the photos of Luka warming up with Nico just like in the background behind him watching. And imagine what those two men, Luka and Nico, are thinking about post this trade. What is Luka thinking about? And we were all waiting for the, Luka to go off and have a big moment where he just, screams in Nico's direction. Nico was sitting within view. I kept saying, like Nico sit somewhere not in view, but he was sitting to the right of the Mavericks bench. You could see him in the corner if you watch some of the replays. Right over the right basket, right over the back of the stanchion, you can see Nico's blue suit and the white shirt like stand out a lot. Like as soon as you realize it, you say, "Oh, that's him." And just every single time the camera pans right, you could tell it was him. We didn't really get that moment from Luka like screaming at Nico. You got a little bit him looking at the bench, but not as much that moment we were waiting for. But it was just so interesting to me to think about what those two guys could be thinking in this moment.
Well, we didn't get Supernova Luka tonight. I mean, this was part of the Mavs game plan, right? Like they went into it like, hey, we don't really give a crap if you have 25 assists in this game. All right. I mean, in a way, that was probably the biggest win for them tonight. Hey, you lost the game in the standings, but you won in the fact that Luka didn't put up 50 and 25 assists looks a little less sexy in a Sports Center headline compared to a 50-pointer, and that means Luka probably hit multiple threes and probably embarrassed you with some words and all the stuff. I mean, look at it. I mean, he had 1 3 in this game, and he had the other one taken away, but he had 1 3 in this game, and that was the moment he looks over and says the stuff, and one of them was directed at Jason Kidd. It looked like, and but he didn't have, I mean, unless you're going to like talk trash after a cool pass or a cool assist, the Mavs tried to just limit those type of moments tonight, and they did a good job in it. Luka still had a crazy triple-double. It's just when they dared the Lakers to hit shots early, and they did. I'll tell you what wasn't weird for me in this game was my hate for the Lakers, because I haven't rooted, and I get, I mean, y'all can, I'm probably in the minority in this, but I haven't rooted for the Mavs so hard and so long. I wanted them to beat the Lakers so dang bad, and I just hate the Lakers so much. And I was like, yes, this is basketball right here. And it was a fun game, right? Like if you want to take the names out, like, oh, this is fun, game of basketball, high stakes, super emotional, effort was there, felt like a playoff game, just all the storylines of different stuff. So it was like I feel weird saying this, like a good night of watching basketball, just as like a basketball junkie, you like watching basketball, but it was just so emotional and weird at the same time. But nothing's changed with my hatred for the Lakers, and over my dead body before I root for the Lakers. All right, so y'all can tweet. People still trying to hey, welcome to the Lakers. I'm like, dude, I don't care. My son could go to the Lakers, and well, actually, I don't know. That would test it all.
You're saying if your son did.
Buddy, get a big contract from the Lakers, and that might change things.
I'm gonna ship a Luka Lakers jersey to your house that's your son's size and just see, just to see.
My son will never see it.
That'll be my Joker move. I just want to see the world burn.
I will give that to a person at church so fast.
We'll do it a giveaway to a listener, somebody that's always calls us Locked On Luka. We'll give it to one of those people. Coming up, Luka pregame and even pregame had a commercial come out about his new Jordan shoe that was devastating. but I've got a conspiracy about it. I'll tell you about that and more coming up. Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY on your cash in non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of a high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national average savings account interest rate claim is based on the data from the FDIC as of November 18, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, what we call our listeners. We appreciate you for listening every day. This episode, we're getting into Luka Doncic and the Mavericks and the whole spectacle of this night and this game and all that. If you want to hear about the basketball, we did another episode on this feed. Wherever you're listening, watching this, go check out that. All right, Isaac. Earlier in the day, the Mavs dropped this commercial where it's
no, the Mavs did not make that.
Okay, I'm sorry. You're right. Jordan dropped this commercial.
I want to clarify what the
Great
Mavs
clarification.
Make.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The Mavs dropped a different commercial before that we talked about a couple days ago, in which I made this Photoshop. But Jordan dropped this commercial where it is a car with a Texas license plate with a 77 on the back of it, and a person that looks like Luca comes back, bends down, and replaces the license plate with a California license plate with a 77 on it. And the song All My Exes Live in Texas was playing during it. It was savage. It was excellent. It made me furious at Jordan for wasting Luka's marketing potential in Texas for so long. It's like as soon as he went to LA, they got the LA marketers and they said, oh, now we know what to do with him, and just immediately gave you exactly what you want. The car then shows up at the game. They announced like free parking in this one parking lot for everybody. They were giving away, I thought I saw like bumper stickers and stuff. And then Luka came out with the Luka 4s.
Yeah, I mean, it was just great marketing. I mean, this is the textbook how to capitalize on a moment, right? I mean, all the eyeballs were on this game. I'll be fascinated to see what some of these numbers are that come out of this game as far as like views or viewers, live viewers. For this, I'm sure TNT is dying to drop those numbers.
Yeah,
we always get those tweets too from NBA Communications. That's like we set a record for it's the most like braggy tweets ever. But no, great move by Jordan Brand. Great timing with the dropping of the Jordan 4. I don't know what the previous release date was for the 4s, but something tells me that once this trade happened, they're eyeing the Lakers Mavs games to debut those. So
one of the conspiracies I talked about when this trade first happened was that Jordan helped push this trade forward because they needed to sell shoes. We need our guy in LA. Jordan is a product of Nike. Former Nike guy Nico Harrison, can you make this happen for us? And they pushed him to LA, got as much buzz as they possibly could, and now now Luka's 4 is coming out.
There you go. Jordan Brand have that much power? Maybe.
Over Nico, probably. You want that job when you eventually get fired, because all GMs get fired eventually.
If he was a Nike signature athlete, which I'll be really curious to see if Luka switches over to Nike at some point. Yeah, I could maybe buy that, but Jordan's signature shoes haven't been that great in the past. But I like these Luka 4s. I actually do like them. I thought the colorway was cool and stuff when he's and he did like one of those Nice Kicks, or somebody posted a thing of it pregame of his favorite part of the shoe, and he was like, it's the heart for on the inside of one of the tongues of the shoes for his daughter. I love when players have little personal touches on their signature shoes and stuff. So I can geek out about shoes all day with this. But when I used to work at Nike, we used to have to learn, like, memorize all these things of like the map of DC that, KD would put on the bottom of the sole, or like what Paul George would do, and like all the stuff with signature shoes. But yeah, I mean, it was a moment for Jordan Brand, it was a moment for Luca, and they capitalized on it. So good for them.
Luca, after the game, had a couple of quotes to TNT. They asked him to explain how he felt, the emotions, and he said, "I don't even know how to explain it. First quarter, second quarter, I didn't even know what was happening. Just how overwhelming this whole moment was." And I think some of the Jordan announcement got completely swept under the rug for him because it was just such a big moment. We also now have some post game. Kyrie was asked how awkward it was playing against Luca. He said, "Awkward as SHIT."
It was cool. I mean, how sentimental was it when they did their handshake before tip off? That was awesome. Immediate. I want to say this. I think Austin Guria tweeted this tonight too, post game. He's like, "What a really mature game from Luca."
Yeah.
I thought it was just across the board. Just a really mature night for him. Like he could have went out and really dove into some of the stuff. I mean, he had a moment of like talking trash, whatever, and that would have been totally warranted. And like everybody would have ran with it. It would have been a lot of fun. Or try to have some, more animosity or pissed off or whatever. And it was the joy of Luca that came through, right? Like, I mean, it was, him staying on the court. LeBron goes straight to the, locker room as soon as the buzzer sounds. Luca's dabbing up all the teammates, going through, different coaches. He's smiling, talking to the guys, does the handshake again with Kyrie, long embrace afterwards. It was just, and I think Jason Kidd said this, Luca's at his best when he's having fun, when he's smiling. And it was fun after seeing these past few weeks and even seeing the introductory press conference where he just looked out of it, miserable. It was fun seeing him smile again at different moments and seeing him like smile even post game and stuff of like, oh, I get to see my guys. It was just a weird feeling all night.
I think maybe the weirdest thing that I felt in all this was that it felt like something had happened to Luca, or it felt like something had happened to the Mavericks. The Mavericks chose this, like the Mavericks, quote unquote. Nico, Dumont, all of them, like they chose to make this happen. Like they brought it upon themselves in making this deal, because the entire night was talked about how it was, the Mavericks are, I mean, even go back to this.
Welcome to Dallas, a city in turmoil.
It felt like it was that, like this turmoil, this frustration, this surreal feeling, this homecoming, that or whatever, this facing his former team, all that. But the Mavericks chose it themselves, and that part I kept going back to. That made it feel even more surreal and make it even feel weirder. And I thought about that when Jason Kidd made his pregame statements, and one of the statements he said was, the train keeps moving, talk about the game. This game is going to come and go, and understand that Luka's going to be one of the best players in the world, and the Lakers are fortunate to have him. And some people were reading that quote and to say that he's going to be one of the best players, like he's got to get to that point. I don't think I read it like that he was saying, well, he's got a long way to go until he becomes one of the best players in the world.
I think said multiple times he's one of the best players in the world.
How many times has Kidd said that?
Yeah.
But it's like, this train keeps moving. We keep moving. We move on, and they're fortunate to have one of the best players in the world. And I was like, oh my gosh, they are. The Mavs gave it to him, and the Mavs chose this.
Yeah, they're obviously you're going to be reminded of the trade at different points when you're playing against that player. There was an angle of the trade I didn't think that I was gonna think about tonight watching the game, and we've talked about a million different angles to the trade, and it was watching Austin Reaves play good basketball. And there was a stretch there where he's just torching the Mavs. And, I thought he had a really good game. He's obviously taking a step in his career, improving and stuff. And I was just like, it's so stupid that y'all got to keep him and you traded for Luca and y'all got to keep, like, he should be in the Mavs jersey. We should have swapped white dudes. And it was
all
like
of our white dudes. You get Luka and Maxey, we get Reeves, and
I was like at one point
connect.
At one point I was like, oh, the wrong white dude for LA is like blowing up the Mavs here. But it's just he just should have been in the deal, right? Like it goes back to the return in the trade, the process of it, and everything. He should have came over with Christie and AD and stuff too, but you know what, they got to keep them and most of their picks, and it was pretty awesome, cool moment.
You mentioned Luca embracing his teammates. I think he did a lot. You saw there was a moment with him and Lively during a timeout or something like that where they were talking and going back, and Lively was kind of pointing at his new shoes and all that kind of stuff. They had the handshake with him and Kyrie a couple of times. I thought that was great. You just had him like felt like the Mavs. He had a moment with Klay Thompson too, where he embraced him after the game.
I didn't see him and Kid dab up, by the way.
I did not see that.
I could have.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let me know if it happened, but I don't think I saw that very, very clearly. But yeah, he mentioned, it was cool to see all those guys to come back together and to embrace each other. And there's no animosity between players, and I think that's one of the reasons why we saw a reserve Luca and a mature Lucas, because it wasn't against any of the players on the court. It's all off. It's all off the court now.
Yeah, and Luca shot free throws different times, and what do we hear? Thank you, Nico.
We did hear thank you, Nico. We did hear that from the Lakers fans.
You could hear it through the broadcast on the TV, and I was like, oh my gosh. I told my wife, I was like, they're really chanting it. Like, I was like joking about this earlier in the week, but they really are chanting it that loud.
They
thank
really
you.
Did.
When in the history of sports has a team fan base in the arena or a stadium or anything in which you play sports, the Roman Coliseum, I don't know, that they have chanted for the opposing team's GM, like thanking them. It has to be a first time in history.
I can't imagine that. Coming up, Luca has a couple of quotes post-game I want to talk about. One of the things about him and Kyrie, another thing about closure with the Mavericks that I found fascinating. We'll talk about all that and more coming up. Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by DoorDash. Isaac, you use DoorDash?
I do. I use it a lot.
You get it delivered to your work. You deliver it to home. You got a couple of kids. You got things to do, right?
You get a Chipotle bowl.
Oh, that's right. Now, when you do DoorDash, when any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 2024-25 regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. That's kind of like a free meal, $10 off right there.
Whoa.
You can get it. Sign up for Dash Pass, whether you're like Isaac and you need it to deliver to your work or to your home or whatever you're doing, whether you're doing a game day feast or something. Check it out. Sign up for Dash Pass. Be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off of an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50. The letters NBA, number 5, number 0, NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. Again, check it out. Sign up for your Dash Pass. Take advantage of it if an NBA player scores 50 the next day. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
All right, Isaac, a couple more things with this day, this game, this day that made it surreal to me. Luca had a quote after the game. About playing with Kyrie. Kyrie is my hermano. We go way beyond basketball. It was good to see those guys. We went to wars together. It was really fun to see them all. And I think the more I hear from Luca, the more it sounded like he is disappointed that he didn't get to go to the mountaintop with the Mavericks. And if we're ranking some of the things that are the most frustrating about this trade, is that's one of them to me, is that it did feel like Luca was really locked in and wanted that as a part of his career, that he wanted to get there. You heard the quote from Dirk the other day. I think he wanted his career to end like mine, kind of deal. And I think having a championship is one of those things that I think Luka wanted. And he wanted it with this crew, with this crew. He said we went to wars together. Like, I think he values that. That's one of the reasons why he raises his game in the playoffs, is because he values that a lot. He's locked in during the playoffs. And yeah, that part with that quote just hit me.
We also don't have hardly anything to like compare it to, because most of the time when stars at this magnitude, if they ever do change teams, it's their choice, right? Like, they choose to go somewhere in free agency. They force a trade somewhere. They want to go to the bigger city or the big market. And it's more of them getting, the feedback from fans and different stuff of like, oh man, they kind of gave up on us and all this stuff. You hardly ever see one, players of his magnitude get traded, but two, whenever they don't want to. Yeah. And that's I just don't. I'm sure if we sat down and really went through, athletes or stars and stuff, to think about a star like legitimately being traded of that magnitude, and it's like genuinely sad about it, and like and like it resonates so much with the fans, and you're just like your heart breaks again, not just for the trade, but then seeing the star which you were a fan of for so long and you wish was still on your team. He's just as like it feels like he's just as sad as you are.
I know.
And it's like, well, this sucks. Why is this all happening all over again?
You mentioned we don't have much to compare it to, but after the game, the TNT guys were asking him questions, and Vince Carter was on the panel, and he said, Luca, I've been in this situation before, and started asking him about this trade. And I was like, I don't know, Vince Carter. I
love you, Vince, but
I don't know if you've been in this situation before. You left Toronto, or like, didn't he force a trade out of Toronto or something?
It was a tough exit, yeah.
It was a tough exit, but he chose it. Like, he was the one that wanted out there. And Luke, like, that's a little different.
Yeah, and Vince is just not at the I mean, his Toronto fame and like connection with fans. I mean, that was a huge thing.
Yeah.
But you know, he's just not a level of player that Luka is at. But I do want to say this, like, I know we talked about, if you're wanting more basketball talk, we have another episode.
Did the whole episode.
It's coming out. Us two and Slightly talking about that. But I just want to say, like, how proud I was of this Mavericks team, that this Mavs team could have lost by 20, 30 with all the injuries. PJ having probably the worst game of his whole career as a Maverick. I thought Max Christie had a tough game. The lights seemed a little too bright for him.
Yeah.
And it felt like Kyrie on an island at times. And it just, the recipe was there for them to get blown out. And they just never gave up. And they stayed in the game. They had a chance to win the game. And it just gives you, I just come out of this game feeling like more confident about this roster and team once they start getting healthy. And the fact that you're seeing Lively and AD like warm up on the court before the game and stuff, you're probably not, I don't want to eat my words here, but you're probably not seeing that happen if they're not going to come back at some point this year. So it just gives you a little hope. It gives you a little motivation seeing how they performed tonight, even though they lost. So I just came away really impressed with how this Mavs team fought tonight.
I said this last post game about Caleb Martin warmed up before the last game, the Pelicans game as well. And if they wouldn't do that unless they had some kind of on ramp where they were working their way back, right? If they were secretly, if the Mavericks secretly, this March 6th date where these guys are supposed to be reevaluated, we know they're not going to come back. They wouldn't do, if they knew that, they wouldn't have these guys warm up and risk, I guess, more injury. Now they're doing very light shooting, and Lively is without the boot on the court doing, little turnaround hooks and things like that. It's not like they're going full out and running up and down doing suicides. They're not doing that. But yeah, that was encouraging. And to your point about this game, this is something that this Mavericks team has now gone through together. An emotional playoff level atmosphere on the road where it's weird. Kyrie just said it was awkward, like it's awkward as hell. Like they went through this and fought through this. This Mavericks team, we've come to know them now as this team that just fights and continues to fight back no matter what's going on. If they're hitting threes, if they're not getting the free throw line, if they're getting rebounds, if they're not, it doesn't really matter. They keep fighting and trying to find ways. And this was another game and another scenario that not a lot of teams are going to get to go through this. The Thunder are not going to get to go through a game like this where they have to fight through that emotion like this. Now they're a much better team than the Mavericks are. But my point is, you just want to be ready for all different types of scenarios in an emotional game like this. And so for the Mavericks to go through this, I think is a good thing for a crew like this.
Yeah. I mean, this is where you grow in chemistry for the big moments, because it was the big moment that, especially early on, the lights were a little too bright for a lot of the Mavs role players. So, it was tough. It felt like game one, first 5 minutes of an NBA finals. And it's like, all right, who's going to be the most calm out here on the floor? So it was tough, but they lose against Charlotte coming up. I'm way more pissed about that one than barely coming up short against this Lakers team.
Luca had another quote that stood out to me after the game. He said, quote, "Closure is going to take a while. It's not ideal, but I'm glad this game is over. There's a lot of emotions, but we go little by little. Every day is better." And you know what? That's the same for us too. The same for us with post this trade. And so you can listen to this next episode. We'll talk just about the basketball of it all. And I don't think we'll have an episode unless something else comes out where somebody else talks in some way. Maybe we'll have to talk about the Jaylen Brown rumor where the Mavs saw Jaylen Brown against Luca in the finals and made that decision. Like maybe we'll talk about that with this trade. But I think this is one where you move on probably a little bit until that April 9th game. And then we'll bring it all back up again and we'll talk about it all then. But I think now, like Luca said, I'm glad this game is over, right? Like,
Yes, thank
we've
God.
now had the first time where Luca has played against his former team.
Yes, I was. It was a fun air quote game to watch, but it was just like, please let this game be over. I do want to say one thing.
Oh, you got to do it though.
One more thing. Yeah. Shout out to LeBron getting called for an offensive foul. I mean, it was this huge moment. I couldn't believe my eyes.
Yeah.
They went to the scores table. They reviewed it. It took a review. Had to see it in slow-mo for them to make sure he got an offensive foul with that off arm there. But this dude's been doing this for 20 years of using that off arm to push off and lower the shoulder and stuff like a running back. And, I was just, hey, he got called for it tonight. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that had a role in that. Replay officials, the person there that turns the TV around for the refs, just everybody involved making that call.
Listen, Luca's not on the team anymore, and all of a sudden we're thanking the officials. Like, we go in the complete opposite direction of this.
Dude,
now?
imagine if Tony Brothers ref this game. He's like, he'd like combust. He's like, I don't know what to do. I hate Luca. I hate the Mavs.
It was John Goebel, and Luca's had some run-ins with him. So
Luca's had run-ins with everybody.
we can say any ref
Tyler
problem.
Ford, Tony Brothers, Scott Foster, Josh Tiven. Like we could go all day.
Almost
I mean,
all
him
of them.
getting a tech early on, I was like, oh, let's go. Classic Luca experience.
Yeah, we got.
What are we doing?
We did get the class.
Proud of you.
We did get it. Go check out the episode with Slightly where we talk about the actual basketball of it. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs. We'll be back with more all throughout the week talking about this actual Mavericks team. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom!